Every human being carries within them a world unseen, a realm of symbols, instincts, and hidden emotions that constantly shapes perception. And while we often believe that our choices are made consciously, many are not. One of the most subtle yet revealing of these unconscious choices is our attraction to certain colors. The hues that draw us in, the tones we avoid, and the shades that comfort or disturb us, all are reflections of something deeper. Color, in its simplest form, is light filtered through emotion. But in its truest form, it is the mirror through which the unconscious speaks. Color does not merely decorate our world, it reveals our inner one. When a person instinctively gravitates toward a certain color, it is not simply aesthetic preference. It is the psyche revealing what it needs to express, to heal, or to balance. A deep blue may reflect the longing for peace and clarity in a stormed mind. A vibrant red may expose the hidden desire to feel alive, to act, to conquer fear. The first impulse toward color often bypasses rationality. It arises before words, before logic. It is a whisper from the inner self that knows what the outer self ignores. This is why color psychology often feels uncanny. It exposes what lies beneath, not what appears on the surface. Each color vibrates with its own psychological frequency. These vibrations resonate with emotions buried within us, awakening parts of the self that language cannot reach. The unconscious does not communicate through sentences. It communicates through symbols, dreams, and sensations. Color belongs to this symbolic language. It transcends culture and words. It speaks directly to the intuitive mind. The same shade of crimson that inspires one person may agitate another, not because of the color itself, but because of the inner world it reflects back to them. Color becomes a living mirror, showing us the parts of ourselves we've neglected, suppressed, or forgotten. The unconscious is not only a reservoir of memories, but a vast field of emotions and archetypal energies that constantly seek expression. When we are disconnected from our feelings, the psyche finds alternative ways to communicate. Sometimes it appears in dreams, sometimes in projections, and sometimes in the colors that magnetize our attention. Our eyes are not the true perceivers, the soul is. What we call preference is often a coded message from the unconscious trying to balance an internal conflict. The person drawn to white may be unconsciously longing for purification from emotional chaos. The one drawn to black may be ready to explore transformation, even if the conscious mind fears it. The pull toward color is the pull toward self-revelation. The mind uses color as a bridge between the seen and the unseen. It links emotion with perception, transforming intangible feelings into visual form. When someone surrounds themselves with warm tones, they might be trying to awaken dormant vitality. When they prefer muted grays, they might be seeking safety from overstimulation. The unconscious guides these choices not as decoration, but as medicine. Each hue becomes a form of therapy, each shade a reflection of what the psyche is attempting to reconcile. In this way, color selection can be read as a psychological map, a projection of inner balance, turmoil, and transformation. Our reactions to color are rarely neutral. We either feel drawn to them or pushed away. Both reactions are meaningful. Attraction signals resonance, an acknowledgement of something we already carry within. Aversion, however, reveals repression, the aspects of the psyche we cannot yet face. Someone who avoids red may be suppressing their anger or passion. Someone who fears yellow may struggle with visibility or self-expression. In every rejection of a color lies an unintegrated truth. The hues we dislike are often the ones holding the lessons we most resist. Even in ancient traditions, color was never regarded as superficial. It was sacred, symbolic, and deeply psychological. In myth, art, and religion, colors represented divine forces and emotional states. The red of sacrifice, the gold of enlightenment, the blue of transcendence. Humanity intuitively understood that color is the language of the soul. Modern science can measure wavelengths, but it cannot measure meaning. Meaning belongs to the inner world, and it is there that color finds its truest significance. When you stand before a painting, a sunset, or even a piece of clothing, and feel a sudden emotional response, that is your unconscious recognizing itself in that hue. To observe your relationship with color is to observe the dialogue between consciousness and the unconscious. Every choice carries symbolic weight. The room you decorate, the clothes you wear, the images you're drawn to, they all form a palette of psychological truth. When you change the colors around you, you often shift your emotional state because you are altering the visual mirror that reflects your inner frequency. The outer environment and inner psyche are not separate. They respond to each other in subtle synchrony. Color, therefore, becomes a portal. It reveals who we are beneath the surface of who we think we are. It reminds us that our emotions are not abstract ideas, but living energies always seeking reflection. When the unconscious finds its mirror in color, it no longer hides in shadows. It begins to reveal its truth through light. When we speak of color, we often think of it as something external, a property of objects, clothing, or art. Yet, color is never purely outside of us. It is a psychological experience that unfolds within. What we see as color is not just light striking the eye, but emotion striking the soul. And within this emotional experience lies a fascinating phenomenon: projection. The colors we love and the ones we reject are not random. They are mirrors of our internal landscape. Through them, we project the contents of our unconscious, our desires, fears, and unresolved emotions onto the world around us. Projection is the act of seeing outside what actually lives inside. It is the psyche's way of encountering its hidden parts. We may not know our suppressed anger, but we feel disturbed by red. We may not recognize our craving for calm, but we are magnetically drawn to blue. Every color we react to carries a reflection of something within us that seeks acknowledgement. This is why color preference is so revealing. It is an unconscious confession expressed in the language of light. Imagine walking into a room painted in deep crimson. One person feels energized and alive, another feels trapped and uneasy. The difference lies not in the color itself, but in what it awakens within. The first person might carry dormant energy longing for release. The second might be reminded of conflict or intensity they fear to face. The mind projects meaning onto color, and through that projection, it exposes the hidden architecture of emotion. The reaction is not about red. It is about the part of the self that either resonates with or resists the qualities red represents. Colors act as psychological screens for projection. Red often mirrors vitality, passion, anger, and survival instinct. Blue becomes the canvas for peace, distance, and melancholy. Green reflects balance, healing, or jealousy. Black embodies mystery, power, or fear of the unknown. White carries purity and perfection, but also emptiness or denial. When we feel an instinctive attraction or aversion to these shades, it is not the pigment that moves us. It is the psyche recognizing its own story in symbolic form. Our relationship with color then becomes a dialogue between the conscious and the unconscious. We believe we are choosing colors, but in truth, colors are revealing our inner state. The unconscious uses color to externalize what cannot yet be spoken. When someone decorates their home entirely in white, it may symbolize a longing for control, clarity, or renewal after internal chaos. When another surrounds themselves with dark tones, it might reflect a journey inward, a desire to face the hidden self, or a defense against overstimulation. These choices are not mere aesthetics, they are psychological statements made in silence. Even the colors we dislike hold meaning. Aversion is often the mirror of repression. The color we avoid is the emotion we refuse to integrate. A person who despises yellow may unconsciously struggle with self-expression or visibility, hiding their light to avoid judgment. One who avoids red may fear confrontation or intensity, suppressing the fiery aspects of their being. Rejection of color reveals rejection of self. Through the lens of projection, every emotional reaction to color becomes a clue pointing toward the unhealed, the unaccepted, or the unseen within. Color preference also evolves with inner transformation. A person drawn to black during times of loss or introspection may later gravitate toward green as they heal and seek growth. The shift in color preference reflects the psyche's movement through emotional stages. Our color palette changes as our consciousness does, marking invisible transitions in our inner world. Each hue becomes a milestone of psychological evolution, a record of the self in motion. Projection through color is not limited to personal preference, it extends to social and cultural symbolism. Groups, nations, and institutions unconsciously choose colors that represent collective emotions. Flags, uniforms, and brands are all psychological mirrors of shared identity. A nation that chooses red as its emblem declares vitality, courage, and aggression. A brand that chooses blue appeals to trust and stability. Collective projection functions in the same way as personal projection. It externalizes inner desires and fears onto visible symbols. Humanity, on both individual and collective levels, communicates through color without realizing it. What makes color projection so profound is its immediacy. Unlike words, color bypasses intellectual defense. It enters directly through sensation, touching emotional memory before thought can intervene. A single shade can evoke nostalgia, safety, or unease in an instant. This directness makes color one of the most honest mirrors of the unconscious. Where logic disguises, color reveals. Where language hesitates, color speaks fluently. To become aware of your color projections is to begin the process of psychological integration. Not by forcing yourself to like every color, but by observing your emotional responses to them. Notice what attracts you, what repels you, and what feels neutral. In those reactions lies a map of your inner world. The hues that comfort you reveal what your psyche finds nourishment in. The ones that disturb you reveal where your psyche is still fragmented. Every time you choose a color, you are unconsciously expressing an emotion, a wound, or a longing that the conscious mind has yet to name. In this way, color preference becomes a form of emotional self-portraiture. You are painting your psyche with invisible strokes of light and feeling. Every shade you love, every tone you fear is an externalization of the unseen forces within you. Through color, the unconscious finds a way to be seen, to communicate, to exist in the visible world. A color is far more than a visual experience. It is an emotional vibration that moves through the psyche like sound through air. Each hue carries an invisible frequency that stirs sensations, memories, and moods that words can rarely capture. The moment the eyes meet color, something deeper than vision begins to stir. It is as if the soul remembers something the mind has forgotten. Every shade holds a pulse, a resonance that awakens specific emotions within us, not by logic, but through energy, sensation, and symbolic memory. From the very beginning of human life, color has influenced emotion before we even learn to name it. The golden warmth of sunrise evokes safety and awakening, while the deep indigo of twilight invites reflection and stillness. These emotional impressions are ancient. They arise from the body's intimate relationship with nature and light. The psyche, shaped through centuries of experience, carries within it these color, emotion connections as if they were primal instincts. When one feels peace in blue, vitality in red, or renewal in green, it is not mere preference. It is the psyche responding to frequencies that align with its inner state. Each color carries its own emotional tone. Red vibrates with intensity, passion, courage, survival, but also anger and restlessness. It stirs the blood, ignites desire, and awakens willpower. Blue, by contrast, slows the pulse and quiets the mind, inviting introspection, distance, and calm. Yet, it can also bring melancholy or emotional withdrawal. Green rests between the two, the mediator, the healer, the color of balance. It resonates with nature's rhythm, the pulse of growth and renewal. Yellow bursts with optimism and curiosity, but can tip into anxiety or overstimulation when too bright. Black resonates with mystery and depth, while white brings a sense of purity or emptiness, depending on the heart that perceives it. These emotional correspondences are not fixed rules, but reflections of how deeply intertwined color and emotion truly are. When a person responds strongly to a particular hue, it is the psyche recognizing resonance. This resonance can come from harmony or from tension. A color may soothe because it reflects an inner balance already present, or it may attract because it represents something missing, an emotional energy the person unconsciously seeks. Likewise, aversion to a color often signals emotional resistance. The hue may carry a vibration that stirs a feeling long buried or avoided. Someone uncomfortable with orange might be distancing themselves from creativity or sensuality. Someone unsettled by gray might be avoiding emotional neutrality or uncertainty. Color does not lie, it mirrors emotional truth with quiet precision. The resonance between color and emotion can also change with time, reflecting the evolution of the inner world. During moments of vitality and expansion, bright colors may feel aligned, while in phases of grief or reflection, muted tones may feel safer. The psyche uses color as an emotional regulator, instinctively reaching for shades that mirror or balance the present mood. This is why people often change the colors of their clothing, rooms, or surroundings after major life transitions, unconsciously trying to bring the external environment into harmony with internal transformation. Color becomes both reflection and remedy. Emotion itself is a movement, an energy in motion. Color, too, is energy, wavelengths of light vibrating at specific frequencies. When emotion and color meet, their vibrations align or clash, creating the experience of resonance or dissonance. A calm mind resonates with soft blues and greens. A passionate one vibrates in sync with reds and golds. This energetic dialogue between inner and outer frequencies forms the foundation of emotional resonance. The body feels it as warmth, calm, or tension even before the mind identifies it. The connection between color and emotion is not imagined. It is physiological, psychological, and symbolic all at once. Memory also plays a part in how colors resonate emotionally. Each hue becomes layered with personal and cultural associations. The color of a childhood blanket, the tone of a loved one's favorite dress, the shade of the sky during a defining moment, all carry emotional imprints. When we encounter these colors again, they awaken those dormant memories, bringing with them the feelings tied to those experiences. Thus, color becomes not only an external sensation, but also an emotional time machine, linking the present moment with the emotional echoes of the past. Across cultures, color symbolism differs, yet the emotional essence remains universal. Red may mean love in one culture and danger in another, yet its vibration of intensity and life force is constant. Blue may signify spirituality or sadness, but its emotional pull towards stillness never changes. Humanity's collective emotional vocabulary is written in color, expressed through art, ritual, and design since the dawn of civilization. Ancient healers used color to balance the spirit. Artists used it to reveal hidden emotion. Spiritual traditions used it to symbolize stages of awakening. This universality reveals that color's power over emotion is not invented. It is inherited from the depths of the collective psyche. When color meets emotion, it bypasses rational understanding and touches something primal. A single hue can comfort or unsettle without explanation. This is because color operates on the same level as emotion, beneath words, beneath reason, where the soul communicates through sensation. To feel drawn to a color is to feel seen by it. The resonance is mutual. As you are moved by the hue, it reflects a part of your emotional truth back to you. In that silent exchange between vision and feeling, color becomes the bridge between the outer world of form and the inner world of emotion. Color is not only an aesthetic phenomenon, it is a symbolic language spoken by the psyche. Beneath the visible spectrum lies an invisible one, the realm of archetypes. Archetypes are primordial patterns of energy and meaning that live in the collective unconscious. They are universal forces that shape our thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. When we encounter color, we are not simply responding to pigment, but to these archetypal vibrations that have been part of human experience since the beginning of consciousness. Every hue is a doorway into an ancient symbol, a reflection of a timeless human truth encoded in light. From the earliest myths to sacred art, color has always served as a bridge between the visible and the invisible. Red has been the color of blood, life, fire, and war. It carries the archetype of vitality and survival, the instinctual drive of existence. It embodies both creation and destruction, the dual force of passion and aggression. When one is drawn to red, it may awaken the inner warrior or the inner lover, both expressions of raw life force. In ancient rituals, red marked initiation, sacrifice, and rebirth, symbolizing the power of transformation through fire. Blue, by contrast, belongs to the archetype of depth and transcendence. It is the color of the sky and the sea, representing the infinite and the unknown. Blue calls to the seeker, the thinker, the one who longs for clarity and peace beyond the chaos of the world. It holds within it the energy of introspection and contemplation. Spiritually, blue has always been associated with truth and faith, the calm certainty that arises from surrendering to the vastness of existence. It is the color of the eternal, the archetype of the divine mind that observes rather than reacts. Green stands between red and blue, balancing earth and sky, passion and peace. It embodies the archetype of renewal, fertility, and harmony. It is the color of growth, of life regenerating itself through cycles of decay and rebirth. Green symbolizes nature's wisdom, the eternal rhythm of creation that moves without hurry, yet never ceases. Those who are drawn to green often carry within them the archetype of the healer or the nurturer, seeking balance, restoration, and connection to the living world. In its darker shades, however, green also reveals envy and stagnation, the shadow of growth withheld or misdirected. Yellow radiates the archetype of illumination and consciousness. It is the color of the sun, intellect, and divine revelation. It awakens curiosity, playfulness, and mental clarity. Yet, like all archetypes, it holds a dual nature. Too much brightness blinds rather than enlightens. Yellow can symbolize wisdom and creativity, but it can also mirror anxiety or superficial optimism that hides fear. In myth, golden light represented the awakening of the soul, the moment when awareness breaks through ignorance. To be drawn to yellow is to seek the clarity of understanding, the spark of insight that brings light to the shadowed corners of the mind. Black carries one of the most misunderstood archetypes, that of transformation through darkness. It is the color of the void, of endings, and of potential not yet realized. Black is not evil, it is depth, mystery, and the fertile soil from which new life emerges. It represents the archetype of the unknown, the place where the ego dissolves and the soul is reborn. In ancient symbolism, initiation into wisdom often required entering darkness, the cave, the night, the underworld, before emerging into light. Those drawn to black are often walking the path of introspection and metamorphosis, confronting the hidden forces within. White, on the other hand, embodies the archetype of purity, unity, and transcendence. It contains all colors within it, representing wholeness rather than emptiness. It is the symbol of the unmanifest, the spiritual ideal, the state before differentiation. White has been the color of divinity, death, and renewal, the paradoxical union of beginning and end. It signifies the yearning for clarity and perfection, but can also reflect the avoidance of complexity, the denial of shadow in pursuit of unattainable purity. It is the color of revelation, but also of withdrawal from the richness of life's contrasts. Purple merges the wisdom of blue with the vitality of red, creating the archetype of transformation through integration. It has long been associated with mysticism, royalty, and spiritual authority. Purple represents the union of opposites, passion and calm, fire and stillness, symbolizing the alchemical process through which consciousness evolves. It evokes intuition, imagination, and inner power. Those who feel drawn to purple resonate with the archetype of the visionary, one who bridges the human and the transcendent, yet its shadow can express arrogance or detachment, the temptation of spiritual superiority. Even colors beyond the traditional spectrum hold archetypal meanings. Gold reflects the archetype of illumination and divine realization, the radiant essence of consciousness itself. Silver embodies intuition, reflection, and lunar mystery, echoing the archetype of the feminine and the cyclical nature of emotion. Brown represents grounding, the stability of the earth, and the archetype of the builder who creates with patience and endurance. Each hue tells the story of a universal energy, a fragment of the great myth humanity continues to live through color. The archetypal symbolism of color reveals that our attraction to certain shades is not simply preference, but participation in an ancient pattern. When a color calls to us, it is the archetype within that responds. The inner god or goddess, the warrior, the sage, the healer or the seeker. Color becomes the visual manifestation of these inner forces, expressing what words cannot contain. Every hue we are drawn to reflects a dialogue between our personal consciousness and the timeless archetypes that shape all human experience. Every human being carries within them an untold story. Not the story they speak, but the one their soul quietly lives. Beneath every choice, every attraction, and every emotion lies a thread that leads back to the center of who we are. Yet, most people spend their lives circling the surface, mistaking self-image for self-knowledge. The path to self-revelation is not found in what we consciously decide to become, but in what is unconsciously guiding us beneath awareness. It is a descent, not an ascent, a movement inward, where light and shadow coexist, where truth whispers through the symbols that life presents. Every moment of attraction or aversion is an invitation to self-revelation. The colors we choose, the people we meet, the emotions that repeat, all carry reflections of what the psyche is trying to make known. The unconscious does not speak through logic, it communicates through resonance, coincidence, and feeling. It calls to us through dreams, art, impulses, and sometimes through the very things we resist the most. The path begins when one learns to listen to these subtle echoes rather than ignore them. What disturbs us in others? What fascinates us in beauty? What draws us toward or away? Each is a mirror of our own hidden nature, asking to be recognized. To walk the path of self, revelation is to surrender the illusion of control. The ego seeks certainty, it wants to define, to label, to protect the known identity. But the deeper self exists beyond labels. It is fluid, mysterious, and paradoxical. When life seems to dismantle who we think we are, it is not punishment, but revelation. The dissolution of certainty allows the unconscious to surface, revealing dimensions of being that the conscious mind had long ignored. Through loss, confusion, or longing, the psyche opens the door inward, asking us to meet the stranger within, the part of ourselves that has been waiting to be acknowledged. Every inner revelation begins with friction. The moments we feel in between who we are and who we think we should be mark the threshold of transformation. The discomfort that arises from this tension is not a signal to retreat, but a sign that the self is expanding beyond its old boundaries. The psyche uses conflict as a catalyst, pushing consciousness to grow into greater wholeness. To see oneself clearly often requires the courage to face the parts we have disowned. The anger, the fear, the envy, the tenderness we buried beneath strength. In bringing them to light, we recover lost fragments of our being, and the personality begins to integrate into something more authentic and whole. Symbols and archetypes guide this process. They are the road signs along the invisible path. When one dreams of water, fire, or color, it is not coincidence but communication. The psyche expresses itself in metaphors, revealing through image what it cannot say in words. Water may speak of emotion, fire of transformation, color of hidden emotion or potential. To interpret these signs is to translate the language of the soul. The more one listens to this symbolic dialogue, the clearer the inner map becomes. The outer world begins to mirror the inner one, synchronizing events and experiences to reveal what consciousness is ready to learn. The path to self-revelation also requires the courage to unmask the false self, the persona we wear to be accepted by the world. This mask, though necessary for social life, becomes a prison when mistaken for identity. Many live behind it for years, performing the version of themselves that pleases others, while the authentic self waits behind it unseen. The moment one recognizes that the mask is not the self, a crack forms in the surface of illusion, allowing truth to breathe through. This recognition can feel destabilizing because it dissolves what once felt solid, yet through that dissolution comes freedom, the freedom to be instead of to appear. Self-revelation is not a single event, but a continuous unfolding. Each experience, pleasant or painful, brings us closer to the essence hidden beneath conditioning. The soul reveals itself in layers, each one peeled back through awareness. One begins to notice patterns, repeated emotions, familiar struggles, recurring symbols. These are not mistakes of fate, but lessons of consciousness designed to bring the unseen into view. The more one observes without judgment, the more transparent the inner world becomes. Awareness transforms resistance into understanding, and understanding transforms suffering into meaning. Silence and solitude often become companions on this path. When the noise of the outer world fades, the inner world begins to speak. Through stillness, we come face to face with the forgotten self, the intuitive, creative, and instinctual being that lives beneath the surface. Here, color, sound, and emotion merge into pure experience, unfiltered by intellect. In this space, one realizes that the journey is not about becoming someone new, but remembering what has always been present. The revelation does not come from adding, but from uncovering, peeling away layers of fear, habit, and false identity until only authenticity remains. The path to self-revelation moves through cycles: awakening, resistance, acceptance, and renewal. Each cycle brings new depth, each insight another layer of truth. As the unconscious becomes conscious, life itself begins to mirror this integration. Relationships shift, desires evolve, perceptions expand. The outer world adjusts to match the inner clarity. This is how the psyche communicates alignment, by transforming both perception and reality in response to self-understanding. The journey inward becomes a journey outward, as what was once hidden within starts to shape the way we see and create the world around us.